Hey, everybody. I'm very excited to have you here. I'm going to be walking through a proven process I've used with my clients to help you have great mental health when you're trying to solve a big problem in your life or if you're dealing with an unexpected crisis. So, my name is Hicks. If you don't know who I am, I do mental health coaching. I help people dramatically improve their mental health, usually within about 90 days on average, using a brain retraining process and set of tools. And I make these videos because I want you to have the mental health you deserve. I was suicidal before, and traditional coping mechanisms did not work great for me. I used therapy, medications, hospitalization, all sorts of stuff like that. Didn't really go very far, but learning how to train my brain worked great. And I want you to be able to have the mental health you deserve, and you can. So, today, this process I'm going to use to show you is one of my favorites, quite honestly, because I'm a big believer in making sure that you create what we call emotional resourcefulness. Emotional resourcefulness simply means that you are able to address problems that you face in your life powerfully, right? You are able to do so from a resourceful state. You are able to meet it head on, either confidently or with a level head, and that you don't feel overly pulled down, dragged down, things of that nature, right? Because not every moment in your life is going to be easy peasy. It's not supposed to be. There are going to be problems in your life. There are going to be unexpected things that occur. It's just the nature of all human life. Sometimes things that are unexpected happen. Sometimes people do things that are unfair to us. Sometimes just sheer dumb luck happens. Like common examples would be if something bad happens with your health that you weren't expecting, a health crisis of some kind. This process I'm going to teach you works very well. Number two would be if you have, say, like an unexpected employment change, you get laid off, you get fired. I've literally used this directly with clients for those particular issues, and it works quite well. Maybe your child has some problem at school that you currently feel stuck on, and you don't know how to improve. Pretty much anything that feels like it's very emotionally significant and you feel stuck as to how to address it, if you really truly follow these steps, you will get some very cool answers. So, but without further ado, let's just jump into it. Uh, so, I have this here in a little PDF document. And if you want your own copy of this, you can get it completely for free at my website. So it's ty-hicks.com/questions. And that will give you access to this full ebook, which has lots of cool stuff in it besides what I'm going to show you today. But let's go ahead and jump into this. So here's what you want to do. If you want to kind of follow along with me, I'd highly recommend it. So first of all, pick a problem in your life that you feel is an ongoing source of stress for you. It doesn't have to be a crisis, but it could just be something that you haven't figured out how to address yet, or you feel like you're procrastinating on, any type of thing of that nature. Okay, so firstly, here's what you want to do. You want to ask yourself, what good will eventually come as a result of this problem? Okay, or a related question would be, what is great about this problem? Now, here's why we're starting with this. I remember, I'm just going to use this example that comes to my mind. I worked with a gentleman a couple of years ago, and he had gotten laid off from a very high paying job. I think he was making around 130 grand a year. He had very high monthly expenses, and he was kind of devastated, didn't know exactly what he was going to do. So, when we are dealing with a problem in our life, our mind likes to default to focusing on a couple of things. The most common thing that our mind will fixate on when something unexpected like this happens is what we fear. And that was naturally what was happening for him. So he was imagining, well, what if I can't pay my bills? And what if I lose my house? And what if I don't get hired anywhere else? And all of those things, right? And your mind will also probably want to overly fixate on some outcome in the future that you do not want to have happen. The problem is if we focus on that and give that our energy, we feel as if it's already taken place. And because when we focus on what we fear, our biological instinct is to back away from what we fear. What can happen for you is you'll end up procrastinating, not taking action, right? Something of that nature. Okay. So that's one of the common things. So what we have to do is we have to get your brain going in a different direction, right? So that you generate emotional resources. So the best way to do this is to start with what is good about this problem. And that may seem like a weird question to ask, but any problem that you have in your life is going to provide you some type of a benefit. It is going to either help you learn a skill, it's going to help you learn a lesson, it's going to make you stronger in some way. It might prompt you to make a new important life decision that really matters to you. It will maybe help you repair a relationship if that's what you choose to let it do. There's all sorts of powerful things. So for him, he had gotten laid off, and I asked him this question, right? Well, what's great about this problem? And at first, he had the same reaction you'd probably have, where he's like, "What are you talking about? What's great about it?" And I told him, "Well, there's got to be some benefits. Like, what is good about it, or what will eventually be good about it?" And so he thought for a second, and he felt like he was drawing a blank. And that's what will happen for you too. Because when you're getting your brain to go in a totally different direction, it won't feel as natural or automatic for you to come up with answers. But you need to stay in that lane of thinking and try to extract useful things so that you train your brain to stay in that one direction. So even if things don't come to you immediately, that's okay. But what you want to start with is that. And so he came up with number one, he could have the opportunity to earn more money because he knows that there are other jobs out in the market that pay more than his most recent job. And so we said, okay, great. Well, that's obviously an opportunity. Number two, he didn't really like his boss very much, right? And didn't like him for a long time. So he now was going to have the opportunity to have a different boss. Third, he was going to have a little fun employment. He would have a little downtime to work on some other projects. And then I know there was a fourth one too. Um, I can't remember it off the top of my head, but we kept going and we found four or five, right? And so those were a couple of the immediate ones. Now think about this. When you get your mind thinking about the good that will come from solving the problem or the good that has already come as a result of the problem, you get your mind in a completely different headspace. Now you're in a completely different emotional state to actually deal with the problem. You've now created an emotional resource where you feel excited to go and solve it, which is really powerful. Okay. So, step two, rather than focusing on what you fear, what is the outcome you truly want? So, before he was focused on what if I lose my job, or what if I can't pay my bills? What if I don't get hired? Yada, yada. So, I said, okay, great. Well, what is the outcome you truly want? Right? Because that's one of the fundamental laws of the human nervous system. We have to have a target in mind of where we're headed in order to feel mentally and emotionally healthy, because we need that feeling of progress. And so we defined that, and he said he wanted to have a job of equal or greater pay. And he ended up refining it to be that he wanted a job with a slightly different set of requirements, where I think he wanted a slightly more flexible schedule, something like that. So we got that very specific because fuzzy targets don't get hit. So I had him make sure he got that super specific. And we now know what we're aiming at. Okay. So we've gotten him a little bit grateful for the problem, and we've got him focused on the target outcome that he wants as opposed to focusing on what he fears. So even if we didn't do any of the remaining steps, those two steps are so critical for turning your mental health into a positive direction. So that worked really well. Okay. Number three, we said, what is not how you want it yet? Right? Now, again, what does that presume? It means that he can get it how he wants it. It's just not currently how he wants it. And this helps his mind get to a deeper level of specificity of figuring out, what do I need to focus on? Right. And so, again, you could see how this would apply if you've got like something bad happens with your health, or you got a problem with your child, or whatever it is, right? You want to define, okay, great, what parts are not how I want it yet? In his case, it was obviously he doesn't have a job yet lined up. And that was pretty much it. Just, I don't have a job yet lined up. That's it. So we know now pretty simply what needs to be solved. Okay. For you, you might find that it's a couple things that are not how you want it. So, for example, if you have a fight with your partner and your partner threatens divorce, something like that, and you say, no, I don't want to get divorced. I want to improve the marriage. I want to get connected again. I want to solve our communication issues. You might have to identify several things that are not how you want it yet. And those would all be items that need to be worked on. Okay. So number four. Number four is, what am I willing to do to make it the way I want it? And this is really important because now you're shifting your nervous system into an action taking frame. And you start to get yourself motivated to actually take action because you've clearly defined what outcome you're after in the first place. So you feel prompted and motivated to go after it. But by now saying, well, what am I willing to do to make it the way I want it? You're clearly delineating what action items need to take place. So your mind is developing even more certainty and confidence that you can actually get it done. This is the beginning of you mapping out your action plan. So in his case, what we said was, he said, well, I'm willing to apply for a job a day. I said, yeah, that's pretty good, right? And then I said, well, what else are you willing to do? And he had something about, I'm willing to contact my past colleagues and employers to see if they have any leads for me. I said, okay, great. That's a very good list. And there were other things on the list too, but those are the ones I kind of remember off the top of my head. Okay. Now we move to number five. Now, number five is sometimes even more important than number four. Number five is, what am I willing to no longer do to make it the way I want it? So let's say you go to the doctor says, hey, you're pre-diabetic. And they say, you really got to change your eating habits or else you're going to have diabetes and, you're going to cut your life expectancy down. Well, sometimes it's not so much what are you willing to do. Sometimes it's what are you willing to no longer do. Like you might need to say, I am no longer willing to eat fast food 5 days a week, because the cost is too high anymore. Right. Or in his case, the gentleman who was laid off, what he came up with was, I'm willing to no longer sit around and complain. Right. I'm willing to no longer do that. I'm no longer willing to sit around and complain because that's just not going to get me closer to getting my job. Right. So you want to identify what are the items that need to get removed that are counterproductive for you getting the goals that you really want. Sometimes that's the most important thing. Okay. Next, number six, how can I do what is necessary to make it how I want it, but also make the process more enjoyable? So for him, he had already identified, I need to apply for jobs. I need to alert my contacts. I need to ask for leads, and I need to stop sitting around and complaining. So what is another really cool law of the nervous system is that we do things repetitively that are pleasurable, and we avoid things that are repetitively painful. So you can hack this by creating a pleasure mechanism for yourself when you do what is required. So some examples would be, for him, what we ended up doing is he had all these beliefs about, I don't want to apply for jobs and I'm afraid of rejection and I don't really want to go talk to these people I used to work with. And I said, well, what's something you really love to do? Right. And for him, it was listening to, I forget what genre, but some particular type of music he really loved. And he had like a record collection. I said, that's awesome. So why don't you just listen to your music while you're applying for jobs? Right. And that was something he really loved to do. And he goes, oh, yeah, I guess I could totally do that. And so sometimes it's as simple as that. Or I know for myself, one of the things I love to do in the warmer months is I love to go sit and work outside. So if I have a work task I don't really want to do, I'll say, okay, well, let's at least go do this outside so I'm getting some fresh air. Excuse me. So you just want to figure out, what do you find pleasurable, and see if you can weave that in. Another way you can do it is you can give yourself a reward after you've done something. So another way you could do it is you could say, after every time I fill out a job application, I'm going to give myself this one piece of my favorite candy that I love, right? Whatever it is. Okay. So another example would be doing something with other people that you enjoy as opposed to doing it alone. So it's really just about bringing pleasure into the process of getting the job done. So figure that out for yourself. Okay. There's one other example that comes to mind, actually. A woman who was pre-diabetic, and we got her changing her health habits. And I said, well, how can you make this fun, right? So it doesn't feel like it's a chore. And so she came up with the idea of doing like a family cook night, like a new recipe once a week where they all try something new that is healthy. So that way they could introduce some variety. So that's kind of how you want to be thinking about it. Okay. Next, how can I use this problem to serve myself and others? Okay, now what we're doing is we're hacking the part of the brain that will do more for others than we will for ourselves. And so if you can connect what you're doing in the moment to solve this problem with a greater than yourself purpose, you will feel more motivated to do it, and you will feel more fulfilled as you actually take action to get it done, because you will know that it's actually serving other people, not just yourself. So for each of these examples, the woman who improved her health, she knew every time I eat healthy, I'm getting more days with my children, was something that she had written down. The gentleman who had gotten laid off, right? He realized for him, he was single, but he had a dog. And so, he said, by me getting my employment, I'm going to make sure that I can afford my dog's, monthly new set of toys, or whatever it was for him. So there's you just want to relate it to something outside of yourself. How is you solving this going to help other people? Okay. Now, number 8, now is where we get tactical. If you notice, what we've done in 1 through 7 is we've shifted your emotional state. Now, to get the benefits of this, you actually need to really do it out on paper and put yourself in that sort of visualization space. Again, it's not going to feel totally natural at first, but you can get better at it over time. Number 8 is where we really start to put the rubber to the road. So we say, what are all of the actions you can think of that would help you get your outcome? Okay. So the one gentleman said, I want this particular job with this amount of earnings, with this type of job schedule, right? And so I said, okay, well, what are all the actions you need to take in order to do that? And he said, well, I already know there's 3 companies that have positions like that or have departments like that. So what I really need to do is I need to contact people inside of each one of those departments. I need to set up an introductory call with those people. I need to see if they need additional talent. I need to update my resume. And I also need to be doing a daily job search for other companies that I may not be aware of that also have similar roles. So he came up with a list of like 4 or 5 items. We said, okay, great, that's awesome. And then number 9 is, out of the list you come up with, what are the 20 to 30% of the actions that will get you 80 to 90% of the result? So I'll jump to my other client, this woman who was improving her health. She had come up with a whole list of things in step 8. Like, well, I need to stop eating sugar, and I need to stop eating bread, and I need to be doing Stairmaster for 30 minutes a day. And she came up with a list of like 9 things, right? And so having a list of 9 potential things that could help is very useful. It's helpful to get in that whiteboarding, brainstorming process where you're just coming up with lots of ideas and lots of options. But if you're going to actually make it easy for yourself to execute on this and get the job done, you've got to focus on getting yourself leverage, which means getting maximum output for ideally as little input as you can. Sometimes you do have to put in a good amount of input to get good output. But for her, what I said was, okay, what are the majority of the action items, or excuse me, what are the couple action items that are going to get you the majority of the result? And so for her, she said, well, as long as I'm exercising every day, then I won't keep gaining weight, right? Even if I were to keep my current eating habits, if I just start exercising for 30 minutes a day, then that should be sufficient for me to make sure that I really lose the weight. And then she came up with one other, which was like one, I think, like really refined sugar dessert that she kept eating a lot. And she said, yeah, that's a huge source of calories and stuff. If I just get rid of that or reduce it to once a month, then those 2 items should get me 70 to 80% of the way there. And so that's what we focused on, right? So question 10, how long will each of those action items from number 9 truly take if you just focus on one at a time? It was pretty obvious. For her, it was just 30 minutes a day. And for the gentleman who had gotten laid off, I don't remember the exact times, but it was something like it could all be done within around 4 hours, 3 to 4 hours. So now, if you think about the power of this, right, we went from a place where your mind is totally focused on what you fear and you're just spiraling about what you fear, to now focusing on what good will come from this, what is the ideal outcome I want, what do I need to do to get it, and what is going to give me leverage. How can I get that outcome as quickly as possible, which is really powerful. And so you figure out what the actual amount of time is so that way you can go to step 11, which is when will I commit and schedule each of those action items from number 10 so that I ensure that I get my desired outcome. So here's the thing that you want to remember. Our brain does not follow through on ambiguous instructions. If you make the instructions crystal clear, then you will increase your chances of follow through. So it's not enough to just say, oh, I need to eat healthier. No, no, no. You need to say, what specifically do I need to cut out of my diet and what do I need to introduce into my diet? And when am I going to eat those things, right? Or, oh, I want to lose some weight through exercise. That's not specific enough. You need to say, how much exercise are you going to do? What kind of exercise are you going to do? And when are you going to do it? So that way your mind has a very specific script to follow when it comes time to execute. You don't want to put yourself in a position where you have to burn a lot of mental calories when it comes time to execute in order to determine what decision you're going to make. Because when your mind has a lot of mental calories to burn and it doesn't have a predetermined plan, it will default to the lowest common denominator or the simplest, most comfortable task imaginable, which is usually like a distraction oriented task, as opposed to what will actually shift the needle for you. Right? So what she ended up doing was I said, look, we need to actually schedule this. So don't just say you're going to work out every day. What time are you going to work out and where are you going to go and when? And she made a specific plan. And for the gentleman who got laid off, we did the same thing. I said, great, when are you going to spend these 4 hours this next week? Tell me what days and at what times you're going to do what things, right? This is called block timing, and it's a very powerful mechanism. So that ended up working very well, and they followed through on it very, very nicely. And when you go through this, whether you've got like a repetitive financial issue that's bothering you, or you've got a repetitive stressor in your relationship that's bothering you, or whatever, then you will have this filled out and then you can keep this with you each day. So the next day you can kind of remind yourself like, oh, wait a minute, what good is going to come from solving this problem? Oh, right. What's my action plan? Oh, right. Oh, I got that done yesterday, but I still need to do these. So it gives you this way to get yourself reassociated to a problem solving state of mind, as opposed to just being fixated on the problem where you're going to feel stuck perpetually. And that's the real power of this process. So the best way to make a skill yours is not to just listen passively and not even just to take notes, but to actually use it. So take a problem in your life that is become a repetitive source of stress for you and use this process and go through it. You might need to go through the video a couple times, but it will work for you very powerfully. And as always, if you are ever dealing with an issue that one of these educational videos can't help solve for you, you might benefit from some one-on-one individual guidance. And I'm always happy to help you out. So you can see where to book a free call with me at my website or below, and I'd be happy to do that. But in the meantime, I'd love to see your comments below on how this helps you. You can even put your answers to the questions in the comments if you'd like to do that. Would be very useful. And in some way, just please engage with this video. Save it for later because you'll probably want to review it later. And that way you'll have it forever. But, congratulations on the progress that you're making. You wouldn't be watching this video if you weren't somebody ready to take action. You do deserve to have incredible mental health. And I want to make sure that we help you get there. So use this in good faith. And I will look forward to seeing you in my next video. Take care.